What's going on YouTube? Mike here with IR Knives, and in this video we're going to be applying green chromium oxide wax-based compound to a kangaroo hide strop. I'm going to do just a really basic stick strop, and I'll put hair side up, or flesh side up. I'm doing this video for someone who recently bought a strop. I think he's fairly new to strops, and he's going to be using green and white compounds. So he asked me to do this video, and I'm just going to put a quick how I do it, and it'll be up to your discretion to either follow or do something different than the way I do it. Going with the strop, I just had a piece of wood. It was a scrap piece, and I just sanded it quick with 220 to kind of scratch up the surface so that the glue adheres well to it. I'm personally using weldwood contact cement. You can use barge, you can use any contact cement, you can use the water-based stuff. I find that the barge and weldwood contact cement, they're the best quality in my opinion. Barge is probably the strongest I've ever used. Weldwood is nice just because the bottle is really easy to apply. It has a nice applicator, and I find that it's easier to mix. I get a quart of it, and then I can use thinner contact cement thinner and get it to a nice consistency. Over time it will thicken because it's a lot like mineral spirits, where it flashes off, or like alcohol that'll flash off and dry out over time. So I find that adding a little bit of thinner to it, after a while, let's say a week or two, a couple drops of thinner will get it back to its original consistency. So just applying the contact cement to both sides, and you let it dry, which takes about 5 minutes, maybe 10 depending on your conditions. It says ready to use in 20, and I think that's for extreme circumstances. If you're like in the cold weather, it might have to dry for 20, but if you put it, if you have like central heat in your house and you put it by the vent and it dries it out, it'll dry in like 30 seconds to a minute. So, once I do that, I just stick the leather to the wood, and I've got a strop, and I do that obviously to both sides. You can, to scratch the surface of the leather, being that I'm putting glue on the smooth side of the leather, you can either take sandpaper to it and scratch it with sandpaper, or do like I did, and I just basically scored it with an X-Acto knife. I used the point of the X-Acto knife and just kind of made like a grid on it. And I find that that's fairly easy. When I make customer strops, I use sandpaper just because I find that it gives the best contact. So once I stick it down, I smooth it out with my hands, apply pressure. You can use like something hard, like a mug, if you wanted to use like the side of a mug to press it down, or like a glass. If you have like a heavy glass, you can take the bottom of the glass and rub it on the leather, and that'll push it down. You want something that's really smooth, so you wouldn't want to use like the bottom of a mug that has the ring on the bottom. That would mess the leather up. You want something really smooth, or you can clamp it to like your countertop or something. If you don't really need much pressure, but if you wanted like a really flat surface, you could do those, any of those things. For this purpose, I didn't do that. But getting to applying the compound, it took me about 7 minutes to do it, but I can do it a lot quicker than that. So showing two different ways. The first way that I did it, I just took the green compound, and without applying much pressure, you just rub the green compound in, trying to create friction, because heat is what helps it doesn't melt the compound into the leather, but it kind of just opens the pores of the leather and allows it to accept it. Now, kangaroo leather is the pores are much more closed than, or the pores are finer than cowhide or horsehide. So if you have a cowhide or horsehide strop, it will be easier to apply. You can see when I applied it this first way, where I just used friction and then I used my finger, and I did also wash my hands right before this, but where I just used my finger and kind of rub it in, creating the heat and the friction. You can see where there's like any little valleys or imperfections in the wood, where the high spots are versus where the low spots are. Now, you can fix that by taking like a fairly good quality paper towel. You don't want to use a shit quality paper towel, like a brawny or something like that has, you know, a good ply to it. You can rub that to get like some excess off and try to even it out, and that will help. The reason you don't want to use a bad quality paper towel is because you'll get the paper towel fibers. They'll just like break up and stick into the leather, and that's not good. So it's not going to hurt your edges per se, but you basically will ruin your strop. It'll just get like shit all in it. So I don't advise it. The other way of doing it is if you have an electric stove, you can turn one of the burners on. I used my small, or like my medium-sized burner. I have a large double burner. This is the medium double burner, and then in the back there's 3 like warming ones. I wanted to use one that had a good amount of heat, but the warming ones didn't throw off enough heat, so I turned it on high just to get it warm, and then I turned it to about 4 or 5, which is like the medium to low end of heat. And then basically just hover the leather over the burner. I imagine you can do this with a gas stove too, but you'd want to keep that flame really low, and you'd want it sort of indirect. So I think if I was going to do it, I would probably take a pan, yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. So I'd probably take like a steel pan and put the pan, or even like a cookie sheet, put that on the flame, and then put the strop, you know, hover it over the steel so that you have indirect heat rather than the flame being right by it, because it could burn the leather, especially the fuzzy part. There's a possibility that it could, you know, start on fire or burn. So I'm using an electric one because that's what I have, and holding the leather, you know, maybe 3 inches away, and holding the compound about the same 3 inches away, making sure that I don't melt, because it will melt. It's wax. And then again, applying very light pressure once it gets warm enough. You don't want it hot to the touch. You want it maybe like 120 degrees, you know, like warmer than, obviously warmer than your body heat, but also, again, you don't want to burn yourself if you touch the leather and you burn yourself, you've gotten it too hot. So just take your time with it, and you can apply the compound, and you'll notice that it applies much smoother. I prefer to go on the lighter end of loading. You could always add more. So I like to, you know, apply a little bit at a time and just take my time with it. You can take the compound out, but it's much easier to add a little bit more than it is to take it out. So I won't even get into how to take the compound out, because my suggestion is to just take your time with it. So to Robert, I hope this video helps. Thanks for getting a strop, and Nick Stasa, thanks for putting my name out there. That's how Robert got my my name for the straps, and found me on Instagram. I really appreciate it, guys. It's been a blast making these straps for everybody, and it's cool to try to share some knowledge and have lots of knowledge shared back with me. So I really appreciate all the support and subscribers. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or email me at iheartknives@yahoo.com. I have a couple videos in the queue. I've been doing lots of filming lately, and I'll have plenty more content coming out in the near future. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.